Hi everyone in English 1301, it's Dr. E again. I just wanted to provide an instructional and informational video for you related to our annotated bibliography assignment. Originally for this week we were going to talk about the paper portfolio. I was going to upload that video. But what I want to do is talk about this first because I think in the sequence of our assignments, it's probably more helpful to start with our understanding of what this assignment means and then move into how this assignment then will impact our paper portfolio. So that's a video that's going to come next week. So don't be confused if you have an old version of the syllabus. I have uploaded a more accurate version of the syllabus that includes the switch in the videos and a couple of other updates and issues that I found and corrected. So just be aware of that, and I'll post about that. But to talk about the annotated bibliography assignment, I first want to just kind of define some of the terminology, right? So what does annotation mean? What does bibliography mean? These are words we've probably heard a lot, we've probably used. I think we've used them in this class before. But what do we really think they mean? What is the expectation here? So what I want to start with is just the idea that an annotated bibliography is an assignment that just pushes us to do our research before writing our paper, or sometimes in the process of writing our paper. And that is to not only avoid the procrastination that comes sometimes. We don't want to wait until the last minute to do our research because that means we are probably not doing the best work with that research. We may get into issues of plagiarism and things like that. So focusing our attention and efforts on an assignment like this lets us get that research out of the way ahead of time, but it also motivates us to look at that research in a very specific way, right? We want to, think about our assignment and our reading for this week about, are these reliable sources? Have we worked to make sure that we absolutely understand the ideas of each author? Because part of academic writing is going to be to take sources or using the words and ideas of others and incorporate that into our own writing. Because if we don't do that, it's just any kind of writing. We can just write anything we want if we don't have to then support it with facts, figures, other people's research and ideas, that kind of thing. So that's just a part of academic writing. So think about if you were writing a research paper for your history class, say it's on the Vietnam War. You aren't going to write a paper that's just about, what you kind of know and understand about the Vietnam War. Your professor is likely going to say, well, if you're stating dates, if you're stating ideas, and if you're talking about different, things that were going through Congress at the time, different things that were published by different news outlets during the time, you need to actually have that evidence. You have to have that support for your paper. It's not just you going into a 5, 10, 15 page paper about what you think. It's about what you have learned, where you got that information, and then using the proper format to include that evidence and information in your paper. So for a history paper, your professors are probably going to require APA formatting, or American Psychological Association formatting. But for English and literature studies, we use MLA, right? We've talked about this before, but the Modern Language Association style of formatting, so that each of our papers will, on the page, look the same, right? We have the heading, we have the header, we have a works cited that comes at the end, and that's really what the annotated bibliography gets into. All those things that would come at the end in your works cited, those works that you have cited, right? We are going to work with that research and those articles and those ideas ahead of time. Right? So to make sure that we are being ethical researchers and to make sure we understand the sources that we're using, that's imperative. We want to do that work. So an annotated bibliography, and this is the informational sheet that is available on D2L. I'm providing you with just some of that vocabulary, as I mentioned, and this is all coming from the Purdue Online Writing Lab website. So if you haven't used that website before, please go get used to it. I'm going to include a link for this week's overall assignments because I want you to just kind of start playing with it, because it can be an overwhelming website if you haven't worked with it before. So now's the time to start getting used to it. So I want you to note that a bibliography, it's just considered that list of sources. So What gets confusing about MLA is that we use that term, bibliography, right? But then we call what comes at the end of our paper a works cited. Okay, so it's ridiculous. That's just another way that MLA is super ridiculous and picky and super annoying. But it's what we have to work with, right? You got to understand the rules so you can play the game, and these are the rules, right, when it comes to writing in this discipline. So that list that is considered, that list of sources is noted or, called a bibliography, right? So bibliographies are sometimes called references, right? In other formatting styles like APA, there are different names for this, but with us, we stick with works cited, okay? And then we've talked about this for sure before. An annotation is just a summary, right? So we combine these two things together, and an annotated bibliography is you providing a summary of the basic ideas and arguments for each source that you're providing, right, in your paper. So, summary is just the basic facts, right? It's not your opinion, it's not your assessment or judgment, it's just you stating overall what that author's or editor's facts are in the piece that you're talking about. So that generally is what an annotated bibliography is. That's what I'm going to ask you to complete, but here's a little bit more information about what the expectations are. So for your research paper, which is also going to be known as the paper portfolio, you're going to utilize 3 articles, and those are going to be articles we read in class, right? So this is just kind of us dipping our toe into this idea of, writing with research. In a lot of your future classes, 1302, if you're taking English 1302, or then getting into the history, the art history, all these different disciplines have papers, and you'll need to do research, right, for them. So this is just us kind of dipping our toe in, so I'm providing you with those sources, but in those classes you will likely have to do your own research. So that's something that you will dig more into in English 1302 if you're taking that class, which hopefully you are, because it's a very helpful class when it comes to expanding your knowledge base and your skills with this kind of writing, okay? So you'll have 3 articles, and we're going to work on these ahead of time, and you will actually complete some annotation exercises working with these articles. So we're going to get some practice and some drafting essentially done ahead of time. Okay, so from these articles, you're going to have 3 different annotations, and you're going to, after working on those individually for the annotation exercises, you're going to compile them into a single document and submit that to D2L in the proper format, right? It has to be in one of these formats in order to be graded. So the requirements are, following MLA generally, 12-point font, TNR is always Times New Roman, double-spaced, include a heading and a header. And then with each annotation, you're going to include what we call a citation. Okay, and that's essentially, a citation is what appears in your works cited page. It's the information about that particular article. So author's last name, comma, first name, the article title, the publication, all of that kind of information is always going to come at the end of a research paper, and it's called a citation. So your annotated bibliography will include your citation for that specific article, and then followed by your summary, right, an explanation. And that's going to be about 200 to 300 words. Okay, so that's it. You have one document that will contain 3 different annotated articles, essentially, right? And I wanted to pull this from our syllabus just to kind of offer a reminder about how our grades are going to be distributed. And so for the paper portfolio altogether, that's 400 points, right? That's a pretty hefty amount that can very drastically affect your overall grade, but it's broken down in several ways. So overall, your paper topic discussion posts, those are the weekly posts that are specifically going to be about the paper topic. That's 100 points. And then we get to your annotated bibliography, and that's 50 points. So it's a sizable grade compared to some of the others. So we want to make sure that we're keeping on top of that. Right, and then down the line we'll have our peer review session in groups that are assigned, and we'll do that online, of course. You're going to submit your revised draft of your paper portfolio to me. You're then going to have a consultation with me, and after we do all of that work, including our annotated bibliography, you'll submit your final portfolio, and that's worth 100 points. Okay, so a lot of your work and effort is going into this, but we also are practicing and doing some of these things along the way. So I'm going to scroll down in just a second to show you an example annotation. Okay, but please note I'm going to provide a template for you that like I've done before, an MLA template that you will then work to fill in. So it's just a general MLA template with the heading, the header, room for all of that, and then you will have to go in and complete your citation for your article, followed by your summary, and then you'll skip a few spaces and start your next citation and summary. So bear with me, just look at my example. Okay, so if you scroll down, you'll see that, this is actually an annotation from when I was in school a while back, a long while back at this point. But I wanted to give you something that, was realistic and something that you can relate to, right? So you'll see that there is a heading right here, and then a header right here. I don't know why MLA has to use that confusing language, but it is what it is. So your header is your last name with the page number, and you'll see that it's kind of grayed out, and that's because Microsoft Word will do that work for you. You should not have to on each page go in and type this. So if you double click up here, it's in a space that's ½ an inch down where you can't just easily go in there and change it. It's because the program does it for you. More on this later, okay? You have your name, you have your heading set up here, and then in blue I have a couple of different bits of information, just reminders. So offer your heading on the first page only. Header includes the last name and page number, and then I'll offer a tip sheet, but don't worry about that just yet. So this is what the annotated bibliography essentially looks like. Here is the citation. That is essentially what would appear in a works cited page for my paper. I have the last name, comma, first name. In quotation marks, I have the title. This is actually the title of a book chapter, but quotation marks are also what we use for articles, from different magazines or online sources. So that's my citation. And then it's followed by my summary, right? So this first paragraph is just me going through what the author's ideas are. And I want you to really pick up on the fact that in every single sentence, I am referencing the author in some way, shape, or form, because I want to make it absolutely clear to my audience, these are not my ideas. These belong to Dorothy Roberts in this, is in this example. So Roberts connects the treatment. She explains this, though her chapter also deals with topics. So I keep coming back to her. I keep making sure that my audience understands that these are somebody else's ideas. You'll notice that there's nothing about my opinion. There's nothing about me in this first paragraph because it's just summary, okay? The next brief paragraph is about how this is connecting to my own research. So you would do the same. You would offer a brief paragraph, just, 3 sentences maybe, about how this research is going to connect to your overall ideas, right? What you're writing about. So this text is useful and informative, and this is where the first person comes in, right? And that's okay. Not in this section, but it's okay in this second section. What I want you to know also is that you have a word count that is required at the end, okay? So what you do is just from the start of the first paragraph to the end of the second paragraph, you just highlight that section, and then I'm going to scooch down here. You'll notice that Microsoft Word does the count for you. So 168 of 653 words at the bottom, that's what I've highlighted. I want you to note that you are required to complete 200 to 300 words. I just did 168 so I could put all of this on a single page, so it's an easier handout or it's an easier example to look at, okay? And I've put those reminders in here. So then right here I've put, okay, your next entry goes here. You have your word count, hit the space bar a couple of times, the enter key a couple of times, and then start your next entry with the author's, the next article information, that citation followed by that summary, right? And then you'll hit the enter key a couple of times and do your third one, okay? So this is just to give you a sense of what we're going for and how we're going to compile our research down the line. I just wanted to provide you with this before the portfolio information so you could see that these are separate assignments, but they are connected in terms of this is the research you'll use for your paper portfolio eventually, okay? If you have questions, let me know, but for right now, just let this kind of marinate, you know, think through some of this stuff, and we'll touch on this more in the future, okay? All right.